Welcome to our deep dive, and today we're looking into something pretty cool, actually,
Yeah, it's all about social skills,
and how important they are.
especially, talking to strangers.
Okay, now this is something I think a lot of people are kind of afraid of,
Yeah.
and we've got some interesting ideas from a Tai Lopez YouTube video.
It's called You Are One Human Relationship Away from Getting What You Want in Life.
Okay, so what you're saying is like we can improve our lives
Yeah.
by being more social.
Exactly.
All right, so how does this work?
Well, Ty starts off with this story about him at a Berkshire Hathaway meeting.
Okay.
And he's tired. He's not really in the mood to be social.
Yeah, I've been there.
And he ends up, sitting next to this older gentleman.
So what did he do? Did he, like, try to make small talk?
Yeah, and this is where it gets interesting. He calls it, the principle of asymmetrical return.
Yeah.
You put in a little effort, just a conversation.
Yeah.
And you could get a massive reward.
What kind of reward are we talking here?
Well, the guy he was talking to turned out to be like a multi-billionaire.
Whoa.
Like one of the richest people in Germany.
Okay, now that's a reward.
And through that conversation, they connected, Ty had mentioned this Book of the Day newsletter he was doing, just sending summaries to friends.
Okay.
And this billionaire, he became a subscriber.
Really?
A month later, Ty is invited to speak to a group of CEOs in Germany.
Just from talking to this guy.
Yeah.
Wow, that's wild. So is Ty saying we should talk to everyone, hoping they're secretly loaded?
Well, not exactly.
Okay.
I mean, it's a cool story, but the real point is about potential.
Okay.
You never know where a conversation could lead.
That's true.
It could be a new friend or a business partner or just a new way of looking at things.
Well, you could learn something new.
Yeah.
So it's not just about, hitting the jackpot. It's about all those little connections we make.
Exactly.
So how do we get over that fear of talking to new people?
Well, Ty has this idea he calls the 40 Strangers Challenge.
40 Strangers Challenge.
Yeah. You talk to 40 strangers in 40 days.
Okay.
Then 40 a week.
Wow.
And then 40 in a day.
40 strangers in one day.
Oh.
That sounds a little intense.
It's about pushing yourself,
out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, even if you just start with saying hi to one new person each day,
Okay.
that's progress.
So you don't have to become like a super extrovert.
Not at all.
All right, what about people who are like introverts by nature?
Well, Ty has some interesting thoughts on that, too.
Yeah.
He says introversion isn't an excuse to avoid talking to people. He says real introversion, like Carl Jung talked about, is how we think, not how social we are.
So you're saying introverts can be just as good at socializing?
Definitely. It's about knowing your strengths and using them.
Okay, that makes sense.
Like some people are great at deep one-on-one conversations,
Yeah.
and others are better in groups.
Yeah.
It's about finding what works for you.
So it's not like one size fits all. But let's be real. Not every conversation goes well. How does Ty deal with rejection? Especially like if you're trying to talk to someone you're interested in.
He tells a story about a guy he calls Drago.
Okay.
This guy is like super attractive, really good with people.
Sounds like he has it all figured out.
But even he gets rejected half the time when he approaches women.
50%. I'm surprised.
It just shows rejection is part of life.
Even for the best of us.
Exactly. The point is not to let it stop you from trying.
So it's like you learn from every interaction.
Yeah.
Whether it goes well or not.
And you build up resilience.
Okay, so if we're not supposed to just directly approach people, how do we even start these conversations?
Well, this is where Ty's advice gets a little controversial.
Oh, boy.
He actually says men shouldn't directly approach women.
Really?
He compares it to like aggressive primate behavior.
Okay, that's a no one.
Yeah.
So what does he suggest instead?
He's all about being subtle,
Mm.
reading the situation,
Yeah.
and engaging the mind, not just giving generic compliments.
Okay, so what does that look like? Give me an example.
He gives this example, opening line. Me and my friend were just talking earlier. We had a little argument. Do you mind settling it? Is it better to be wanted or needed? And why?
Interesting. It's definitely a conversation starter.
Yeah, and the key is to listen to the other person's response.
Yeah, you can't just use the same line on everyone.
Right. It's about being respectful and seeing where the conversation goes.
It's about actually connecting.
Exactly. And sometimes the best connections come from unexpected places.
Okay.
He talks about talking to groups.
Groups of people.
Yeah, especially mixed gender groups.
How do you even approach that?
He says start by talking to the man in the group.
Okay.
It's less threatening, And then once you've connected, you can ask, how do you two know each other?
Clever. It's a casual way to figure out the dynamics.
Yeah, but Ty also acknowledges that things are different for men and women.
I bet women have to deal with a lot more unwanted attention.
He brings up resting bitch face,
That's
which, It's funny, but it's a real thing.
Yeah, women often have to put on a neutral face just to feel safe.
It's unfortunate.
But it shows how important it is to be aware of how our actions affect others.
Absolutely. And that's key to building real connections with anyone.
So where do we go from here? How do we take all this and actually use it?
That's a great question. And that's what we'll dig into in the next part of this deep dive.
Stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back.
All right, so we're back and ready to keep going with this whole social skills thing.
Yeah, last time we left off talking about how men shouldn't be too direct when approaching women.
Right, we were getting into some of Tai's more, let's say, interesting advice.
Okay, so before we get to that, let's rewind a bit. What about those 5 archetypes of men that women are supposedly attracted to?
Yes. The surfer, Clark Kent James Bond.
Local celebrity.
And the spiritual artist.
It's quite a mix.
It's not about fitting into a box, though.
Okay.
It's about cultivating different parts of yourself.
So like becoming a more well-rounded person.
Exactly.
Okay, so take the surfer, for example.
Yeah.
It's not just about being ripped, right?
It's about vitality, energy, that connection to physical well-being.
And what about Clark Kent?
Well, obviously, it's more than just the glasses.
Right.
It's about intelligence, that ability to solve problems, that quiet confidence.
Oh, like he's got it all under control.
Yeah.
Okay, then you've got James Bond.
Yeah.
Mr. Sophistication.
Yeah, and the local celebrity with their social network and influence.
And, of course, the spiritual artist who brings that creative depth.
I think the point is to see which of these resonate with you.
Yeah.
And then you can work on developing those qualities.
So it's about becoming more interesting, more engaging.
Exactly. And that's attractive to everyone, not just women.
It makes you think how these archetypes could apply to other areas of life, too.
Like business success.
Yeah, maybe that's what sets successful people apart.
That ability to connect with different kinds of people.
And to bring all these different strengths to the table.
Right.
So it seems like Tai's overall message is about being more proactive and mindful about how we build relationships.
Not just networking for the sake of it.
But really connecting.
And seeing the potential in every interaction.
He talks about being willing to travel, too.
Not just physically, but emotionally.
Right.
Stepping outside your comfort zone.
Being open to new experiences.
That's what the 40 Strangers Challenge is all about.
It's not just about the number of people you talk to.
It's about challenging yourself.
And in the process, you might discover something new about yourself.
Exactly. Your strengths, your weaknesses, where you can grow.
I'm starting to see social skills differently now. It's not just about small talk.
It's about living a more connected life. It all starts at that first step, that first conversation.
But what about people who struggle with social anxiety?
It can be really tough.
Does Tai have any advice for dealing with that?
He does.
Okay.
He goes back to his point about introversion.
Uh-huh.
He says a lot of what we call shyness or social anxiety is actually just fear.
Fear disguised as a personality trait.
Exactly.
So it's all in our heads.
Not entirely, but our thoughts have a huge impact.
Yeah. If you think you're awkward, you'll probably act awkward.
Right. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
So how do we break out of that?
Tai says we need to challenge those negative thoughts.
Okay.
Replace them with positive ones.
Like what?
Focus on your strengths. Remind yourself that everyone gets self-doubt.
Even the most confident people.
Yeah, it's about self-awareness and self-compassion.
And remembering that social skills are like any other skill.
You can practice and get better.
It's not about becoming a social butterfly overnight.
It's about small steps.
Pushing your comfort zone.
And celebrating your progress.
Like with the 40 Strangers Challenge.
All right.
It's about building that confidence.
And who knows, maybe those conversations will lead to new opportunities.
Or even just make your day a little brighter.
You never know what might happen.
Exciting to think about.
So we've talked about being open to new connections.
But let's be real, not everyone is approachable.
Right.
Not every conversation is going to be positive.
Yeah. What do you do when you meet someone who's rude or negative?
That's a good question. It's something we all have to deal with sometimes.
It's important to remember we can't control other people.
But we can control how we react.
Exactly. Sometimes the best thing to do is just disengage.
Walk away.
Yeah, don't waste your energy on negativity.
It's like that saying, don't wrestle with a pig. You both get dirty, but the pig enjoys it.
Uh-huh. That's a good one.
We should choose to spend our energy on interactions that make us feel good.
That lift us up.
So it's about setting boundaries.
Protecting your own well-being.
And being mindful of who you choose to engage with.
It's a balance.
Being open to new connections, but also taking care of yourself.
That's a key takeaway from this deep dive.
It's been really eye-opening.
We've talked about social skills.
Introversion and extroversion.
And how to build meaningful connections.
So what are some of the main things you want our listeners to remember?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is this human connection isn't optional.
It's essential.
It's crucial for our well-being.
And for our success in life.
It's never too late to start building those connections.
Whether it's through the 40 Strangers Challenge.
Or just making an effort to be more present in your daily interactions.
We all have the power to create a more connected life.
And remember, every interaction is an opportunity.
You never know where a simple conversation might lead. Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive. And we've covered a lot.
We have, from those chance meetings to those archetypes, and even how to deal with those not-so-fun conversations.
Right, like what happens when you meet someone who's just not that nice.
Exactly. So where do we go from here? How do we use all this stuff?
Well, I think it comes down to remembering how powerful connections are.
And being intentional about how we build those relationships.
I like that word intentional. It's like you're really putting thought into it.
Yeah, you're not just being social for the sake of being social.
Right, you're thinking about the connections you're making and the energy you're bringing.
And it all starts with knowing yourself.
Like, what are your good qualities?
Yeah. What are your values?
What kind of people are you looking to connect with?
Right. It's about being self-aware.
Knowing what you want.
So how do we turn that self-awareness into action?
Well, that's where Tai's 40 Strangers Challenge comes in.
Even if you just do a modified version.
Yeah, you don't have to go all out.
But it's about pushing yourself.
Getting out of your comfort zone.
Talk to people you don't know.
And you might be surprised by what happens.
It's not just about how many people you talk to, though.
Right.
It's about quality, too.
Like really being present in those conversations.
Actually listening. Finding those moments of real connection.
You know, I was thinking about my own experiences with chance encounters.
Yeah.
I remember this one time I was at a coffee shop, super stressed about work,
Uh-huh.
and I started talking to the barista about their favorite coffee beans.
Sounds simple.
It was. But it totally changed my mood.
It's amazing how these small interactions can have such a big impact.
And sometimes those little conversations can lead to something more.
Like Tai meeting that billionaire.
Exactly. It reminds you that everyone has a story.
Everyone has something unique to offer.
And when we're open to those connections,
We make our own lives richer.
and we create a more connected world.
It's like planting seeds.
You never know which ones will grow into something amazing.
But we have to nurture those connections.
It takes effort.
You have to follow up, build real relationships.
Be there for each other.
It's a two-way street.
You get back what you give.
This deep dive has been really insightful.
We've learned so much about social skill
About introversion and extroversion.
and how to build relationships that matter.
So what are some of the key takeaways you want to leave our listeners with?
I'd say the biggest one is this human connection isn't just a nice to have.
It's essential.
It's crucial for our well-being,
For our happiness.
for our success.
It's never too late to start building those connections.
You can try the 40 Strangers Challenge.
Or just make a conscious effort to be more present in your daily life.
We all have the power to create a more connected life.
And remember, every interaction is an opportunity.
You never know where a conversation might lead.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time, keep exploring
Keep connecting.
and keep diving deep.